another episode of Interpreting 101. Well, today I'm going to be talking to you about starting from the top. What do I mean by starting from the top? The journey to achieving inclusion in terms of accessibility of information for deaf people has to start from the top. If you're going to achieve anything, you have to start from the top. You have to show an example from the highest office in the country. There's this saying that says charity begins at home. I don't even think it applies in this context 100%. But still, we all look up to the office of the president. That's why we can call home for all of us. That's why we want to see the right example set. That's why we emulate all the good things and all the bad things that are done. If it is not done right from the top, that is the same way it's going to trickle down. If it is done right from the top, it is going to trickle down the same way. We will all be able to do it right. If the office of the president is accessible, if they're making sure that the information they provide to the public is accessible to deaf Kenyans, it is highly likely that all these other arms of government down here will follow suit. But if it is not, it is going to be very difficult to ask the other arms of government to make sure that they are accessible. If they all look back and realize, well, the top office is not doing it, why should we? This should not even be something that we are begging to be done. It is in the Constitution. It is the right thing to do. Press briefings, State House briefings, presidential address, emergency situations. All this should be accessible to deaf people on equal measure with the rest of us Kenyans. When I say on equal measure, I mean this. Whenever the president is addressing the nation, whenever State House is doing press briefings, whenever we have an emergency situation, we need to always have an interpreter on site. There has been a lot of overdependence of interpreters on media. Nothing wrong with that. But the insert on media has been a topic of controversy for so long because of how much accessibility it provides. That insert, for it to be accessible, it depends with the size of a TV a deaf person has. The bigger the TV, the more accessible it is. The smaller your TV, the more inaccessible information becomes. If I, as Nyambura Mwangi, will sit in my living room and listen to the president giving an address on TV, why can't a deaf person get the same information on equal measure like I am? Why can't State House just have an interpreter during that press briefing on site? That is what would be considered accessible by the deaf community. There are certain things that require an interpreter on site. We cannot be so over-dependent on media houses that everything that happens in this country, we are like, oh, media houses are going to provide interpretation. We cannot do that. There is information that is so critical to all of us Kenyans that State House, your communications office requires to have an interpreter on site. Some of this interpretation actually is supposed to be done by deaf interpreters and not us hearing interpreters because of the nature of information that is being provided. If you start doing it right from the top, and I don't think it's too much to ask. It is not too much to ask. If you engage the right people, you'll not even struggle doing it. Someone else will deal with how it is done. Someone else will advise the right way to do it. But what I'm asking is that the highest office, please ensure that your information is accessible to all of us Kenyans, because that office represents all Kenyans, and deaf people are Kenyans. If information is accessible to me, it should be accessible to deaf people equally, without any discrimination or without any unfairness, or without having to subject them to either waiting for 7 p.m. news, and if they are lucky enough to have an interpreter, subjecting them to a small insert when all of us are accessing that information without any struggle. Again, it is not too much to ask. Do the right thing from the top, and it will trickle down to the rest of Kenyans. We cannot claim to achieve the development agenda when you have a population that cannot access information in today's age and time. If you're going to achieve any development agenda, we have to all move together. Let's not leave deaf people behind by denying them equal access to information. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please follow us on our social media pages, Cecily Services on Instagram, Center for Sign Language Interpreting Services on Facebook.